You're listening to Exposure on Radio X. I'm John Kennedy, and that is Manic Street Preachers with People Give In. It is the opening track on the brand new album, Resistance is Futile, and I'm very pleased to say that Nicky and James Dean Bradfield are here with me to talk us through the whole thing track by track. Welcome. Hello.
Hello.
Welcome to Radio X. Welcome back to Exposure. Yes. It's great to have you here, and it's only kind of just realising that this is like 4 years since the last album, whereas you've been on such a roll. You're always so ridiculously busy touring or recording, and that gap is quite a big gap for you, I think.
It's the longest gap ever between albums for us, you know, by a long way as well. Like you said, it almost doesn't feel like Futurology was 4 years ago, but I think we needed a space to breathe. We also had to move studios, so the one in Cardiff was knocked down for luxury flats, like most things these days. So we built a new studio outside Newport, converted an old building and stuff. So, and I certainly lyrically needed time to filter my thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that seems fair enough. I mean, for some people, 4 years is nothing. It's pretty standard. But, you know, for the work-loving Manic Street Preachers, no, it's unusual.
I think, like I said, it is a strange one because it doesn't feel like 4 years, and obviously we did the Holy Bible and Everything Must Go anniversary tours in between Futurology and this, so that seems to have closed the gap somehow. But yeah, I was always, by the end of the Everything Must Go anniversary tour, which we did in conjunction with Futurology anyway, I think, it felt as if I wanted new stuff to get our teeth into. You know, you become aware that if you do too many of those anniversary things, then you become a museum band, you know. Yeah. So it started like it was a nagging question in our heads that we need to get round to new stuff. Yeah. But in reality, you know, this album may have been out perhaps a year earlier if we hadn't lost our studio and then had to build another studio somewhere else. So it's been mitigating circumstances, definitely.
Yeah. Well, it's been worth the wait, I think. You're back with a vengeance and back rockier than ever, I think. And kicking off the album with People Give In, which is, surely it's a surefire anthem, and surely it's going to be a single at some point.
Well, it's, for me, it always sounded like the classic opening track, which for us is almost as important as a single. We've always been brought up on that statement first song, you know, Send Away the Tigers. It goes right back to Generation Terrace. And yeah, definitely it was in contention to be a single, if singles exist anymore. I have no idea. True. We've already at least 3 already. This album. But yeah, and it's a very open lyric for me. It's kind of a lot of love in humanity in the lyric, which I don't necessarily have in my personality much of the time. I think James was quite shocked by the words because they are so open, really, and you know, it's a rallying cry for humanity, which, like I said, it wouldn't have fitted that easily on Holy Bible lyrically.
I mean, I got the lyric off Nick, and I was shocked by the lyric at first, and then I just got into it, and you know, and the song just flowed in, just, you know, must have been, you know, not even 10 minutes while I was on the sofa in the house, and when I had a spare day to myself in the house where there was nothing except me and the dog, and it just came so naturally, and that's always really exciting when that happens, and it always means it's come from the lyric. You know, a lyric always seems to inspire the best music, and that's the way it always should be with us. And I just knew that we were kind of perhaps in my deluded little bubble at that point. I knew we were kind of on something from that track onwards.
Yeah, so this was a pretty early song then in the whole process.
Quite early, yeah. But it came after we had to kind of leave Faster Studios. It came just after that. So I did it did the demo in a little studio in Cardiff Bay called Watertown Studios, which is owned by somebody called Gavin Fitzjohn, who plays with us, and he's going to be playing with us on the tour. It just came really quick, and the demo came really quick. It came in one night. So, it was cool. It was a good start.
It felt like a sort of Mike Hedges production, but with steroids. You know, it's got the grandeur of a Mike Hedges Everything Must Go track, but with almost like a When the Levy drum sound, When the Levy breaks drum sound. And I know everything about it. It came really naturally. I hadn't really heard what the boys had done. I'd been away for a couple of days, and then I turned up and Jim said, "Can you put the bass on this?" I was like, "Well, I've never even..." Usually takes me a lot longer to figure that out. But even that went really swimmingly, actually.
It did, yeah. It felt like probably the first track that we just knew that was kind of going to be, you know, either the first or second track on the record. We just knew it straight away.
Yeah. And so, given that little time gap, given that time to take stock, what was the approach with this record in terms of the music? Because it definitely has a kind of theme running through it. It seems like you're back in a kind of rock mode.
I think we kind of had a bit of an existential moment where, you know, it's kind of the obvious question to ask when you're making an album these days is, do people listen to albums anymore? Do people listen, when they buy a record, do they listen to it from the first track to the last? As you should, I must say. And the answer was probably, to a large degree, no. So once you kind of have admitted that to yourself, it does pose a certain question, you know, who's going to care about track 7, which you fall in love with 3 months after buying the record? You know, and I think we kind of overcame that difficulty by just saying, well, therefore, if that's the case, you know, we're going to try and write every song as if it could be a single. You know, whether it could be like a fifth campaign single in 1995 or 6 or wherever. But, you know, you got to try and have that kind of, you know, MO of just writing every song as if it could be a single.
I just wanted to maximise the potential of every song, which sometimes you don't, because sometimes you set out specifically to do something sprawling and abstract, you know, just to fill in the gaps. But with this, you know, we did really, every song was like, we have to make this as... So there's, I think it's less thematic, certainly lyrically, it's less thematic than, say, Futurology or Rewind the Film. You know, there's just a kind of glory in each song, sort of miniature glory in each song.
Yeah.
Really wanted to maximise.
And you can certainly hear that glory in the second track, International Blue, which was our first taste of the record.
Yeah.
And what an amazing soaring piece of music, celebrating colour and a colour and the man who invented that colour.
Yeah.
What a great idea.
Well, the lyric it's one of the longest lyrics I've ever taken to finish, because it started off 5 years ago on my 20th wedding anniversary. Me and my wife went to Nice. We'd never really been away from the kids from maybe more than a night before, and there's a lot of Yves Klein stuff there in the Museum of Modern Art, and just connecting the sea and the sky and that blue, the vivid blue of the Mediterranean. I'd never really experienced that before, and it just overwhelmed me. And I had the title and a couple of lyrics, but James was really nagging me for a lyric in summer last year, maybe summer, autumn.
Yeah.
On and on and on. I thought I just didn't have much left. I found International Blue and added maybe the sort of 6 lines that it really needed, and there you go.
And so you were nagging him for a lyric change. Does that mean that you had a piece of music that you had in mind?
No, I mean, kind of like I said, it's just pretty much always, you know, the way we write songs is I need a lyric to inspire music. I just need a lyric in front of me to inspire some music. So if I've got no lyrics in front of me, everything is just stop dead. So that's why I'm always nagging for a lyric. But I suppose when you think you've got an album in the bag, you think you've got 9 definite songs, you know, what happens with us is towards the end, you always write at least 1 or 2 songs at the end, which are really very essential to the record. In other words, you tend to write a single towards the end of the process. And I was...
When did that start with us?
I don't know.
Probably the last four records, isn't it?
Sure. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
It's really Tolerate even as well, actually.
It's like last minute equalizer, isn't it? You know? And I just knew we were at that point where that important song had to come through, and I you know, when you need that moment to happen, I need a lyric off why I can't write that lyric, and then I needed another one after International Blue because I sensed that we were just one song away, and then it happened again with another song. So it just happens with us now, and it's not something that we don't design it that way. Again, it's just tending to happen that way. We need to have that a bit more pressure and the frame of like a nearly complete album to realise what it needs to be finished. I don't know why, it just happens.
And James also, on a completely random theoretical thing, just thought he loved so many songs with blue in. Blue Skies, Blue Boy, Orange
Blue Skies,
Story of the Blues, The Moon is Blue, Colour Box.
It was. As soon as I saw the title, I just like, it's got to be a winner. I can't let down the grand, you know, 80s indie tradition down, where if you got Blue in the title, more often than not, it's just an amazing song, you know, or trying to it.
Yeah.
So I had that kind of little bit of superstition about it. And the list of, like, you know, songs with Blue in the title is much longer than that. It just is.
Yeah. That little kind of keys hook, it sounds like chimes. I mean, I love that. You know,
yeah.
Yeah, that was to me trying to do a Springsteen kind of river era kind of like hook kind of thing, you know. Because the one thing I got when I read the lyric was it just made me feel free. There was no cynicism in there. It felt like a rebirth of some kind of innocence. And I just it made me feel like that. I just loved reading it. It seemed so simple. It communicated straight away. And I just had the idea of almost the European version of that heat haze you get on those freeways in Midwest America when you start on that endless journey, and you just get that heat haze across the highway in the distance. And I just wanted to evoke that, just trying to find something, but enjoying the search to try and find something.
Yeah. Well,
so that's why you got that, you know, those kind of like little hooks coming out, you know. It's just trying to grab onto something.
Yeah. Well, it works a treat. It sounds fantastic playing on the radio, and we're going to play it now. It is International Blue, Manic Street Preachers on X-Posure, Radio X. It is Manic Street Preachers with Distant Colours. It's the third track on their brand new album, Resistance is Futile. I'm playing you the whole thing tonight. It is X-Posure on Radio X. I'm John Kennedy, and James and Nicky from the band are here talking us through it track by track. So Distant Colours, I think, has a slight difference in terms of how it was created. And the words are yours, James. Is that right?
Yeah, it is, yeah. It's kind of a simple song. It's a song about not knowing your place in cultural and political proceedings of the last 3 years or so, I suppose. So it's a bit of a post-Trump, you know, election win, referendum results, general election. It's kind of all those things are in there to a degree, but it's disguised as a love song, as a failing relationship love song, you know. And yeah, it was just a simple thing of just, I suppose, the confusion of not knowing where to pin your colours to anymore. When you have people fighting on the same side, that traditionally been on the same side in terms of opinion or voting patterns or whatever, all that kind of stuff. When those people are actually fighting with each other, but in quite a bad fashion, you know, in quite a destructive fashion, you know, you know that kind of like things have become so intractable that we're just living in utterly just different new times. And it also feeds into it. You know, we're on our 13th record. You know, I'm 49. Why is 49? Sean is 50 this year. Everything kind of becomes a distant memory, a distant colour. You know, you've got to try and hold on to what was real and what can translate into the modern day. You know, you've got to try and find your place in it all. And you've got to decide you've got to try and discern between nostalgia and true memory, I suppose. So all those things feed into it. And it was another one of the songs that was started at Faster Studios. So that was in 2016. So it's one of the older songs on there. And it mutated as events kept, you know, as events kept happening, it mutated with it, I suppose.
Yeah, so a feeling of rootlessness, or it just...
but yeah, I think, you know, yeah. I mean, I come from an era where you define yourself by what you know you're against. And it's harder to be like that now, I think. It's harder to be a tribe now, I think.
Yeah. These things are thrown at us, and we have to react. And this is one of your responses. And I guess, you know, there's a certain feeling that you can hear in Distant Colours that does pervade the record in a way. That idea of it's almost melancholy, a feeling that an unnamed sadness that grips us and our lives at the moment.
Yeah, but I don't think that some of that theme that runs through the album, I don't think any of it is really an accusation. I think it's we're trying to discern, trying to understand, rather than just saying, "Hey man, this is all messed up. This is also effed up," and all that kind of stuff. You know, we're actually trying to pick our way through it, I think.
Yeah, I don't think it's like probably one of our least judgmental albums, because I don't think we really think we got the answers anymore. You know, when you're 22 and you're having your photo done with spray painted shirts in the front of Buckingham Palace, you just think you got the answers to everything. It doesn't matter, and you're tight as the four of you against the world. But there's a lot of uncertainty in a sense on this record, in just having no answers. You know, that, like Jim said, the certainty of memory it's definitely not a nostalgic thing. It's just realising some things are disappearing forever and making sure you kind of hold on to that piece of memory that made you feel good.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's interesting because it kind of links into the next song, which is Vivian, which is a celebration of Vivian Mayer, the photographer, who spent her life taking photographs in her spare time for nobody to see these photos until she died. Yeah. And through this song, you're kind of looking at that and celebrating that work that she did.
Yeah, I mean, if anyone's seen the documentary Finding Vivian Mayer, it's just truly extraordinary piece of film, and you wouldn't actually believe it unless you watched it. Because, you know, she never, ever stopped taking photographs every single day. She was a nanny, a pretty bad nanny by all accounts. And she dragged the kids with her all across wherever she lived, you know, because she took pictures non-stop. And hoarded them.
I guess we should... She was around in the 50s, 60s, 70s, something like that.
And she only ever developed about, I think, barely 50 prints, which, bizarrely, she had visited a tiny town in France. I think she had relatives in France. And she had developed a few photographs there at a chemist, which bizarrely is still there as well, and remembered. I think the daughter remembers. But apart from that, all these negatives were found just in a junk sale. And
in New York, wasn't it?
Yeah. So it's quite interesting to see then how that pans out as well, because there is some resistance in MoMA and Museum of Modern Art in New York and stuff like that almost like, they didn't discover this, so that it can't be that good. You know, we can't exhibit it. It's a bit like Lowry with the Tate was kind of mothballed for decades, even though he'd had the most popular exhibition in the 70s. He was mothballed, probably because he turned down a knighthood and he wasn't part of the establishment. So, you know, that's an interesting part of it as well.
Yeah. And so seeing the film or seeing her work, or was it the idea of the life that inspired you to write the words? Or
it was both, actually. Seeing the film, but also me and we were touring in America, and we were in New York, and I realised the hotel, there was a gallery fairly close, apparently, which stocked some of her work. And I was wandering up and down this street and I could not find it. Bizarrely bumped into James. And he was looking as well, so I made him go into this building because it looked like an apartment building. And we asked the doorman, and we go up in this really weird lift, and you think, what is going on?
It got a bit Tales of the Unexpected there, you know, with a bit of Mr. Ben in there.
But then we walk in, and I managed to buy a Vivian Mayer print, and it's just one of those serendipity kind of days that only Manic Street Preachers have.
Yeah. Searching for art, and you found it.
Indeed.
No, and that is one of the themes in the record, isn't it? Kind of,
it is.
Finding refuge in art.
It is, you know, because I didn't want to reflect my own misery as much as I have done on some records. Just wanted to pass on the joy that I gain through other people and other places, rather than being too confessional. Just because it does give you there's a massive part of my life that has been formed by stuff like that, you know, and it is tangible and it is real and it hopefully will exist forever. And if I can just, you know, give that little bit of help to it, you know, the Yves Klein thing in Nice in particular, then we did the video in Nice, and everything again fell into place because the hotel we stayed in, every room had a poster with an Yves Klein print and an Yves Klein quote. You walk in, you think, how do these things happen? You know, it's pretty miraculous.
Yeah, amazing.
But it's all by chance. Some algorithms do not dictate your life. Sometimes you can break free, and just magic and discovery does take over.
Yeah. Fantastic. And then you get to share the joy with the world.
Yes.
In whatever way you can. And this is the Manic Street Preachers way. This is Vivian on X-Posure, Radio X. It is Manic Street Preachers with Dylan and Caitlin. It's the 5th track on the brand new album, Resistance is Futile, getting the X-Posure album playback treatment tonight. I'm John Kennedy, and Nicky and James are here giving us the lowdown on these songs. And Dylan and Caitlin, another celebration in a way of two big figures in Welsh culture.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it's obviously, I've always been fascinated by Larne in particular, and there's a certain kind of eerie magic to Larne. And where a lot of the drama was played out between Dylan and Caitlin, the drama of their lives. And it's just quite a romantic. I wrote it really specifically as a duet. When I gave the lyric to James, it was marked out, James sings, lady sings.
Yeah.
And we always had the anchoress in mind as well. She'd done some gigs with us. She'd sang Little Baby Nothing a couple of times with us, which she was absolutely perfect on without even, it was a couple of sound checks.
Yeah.
But it was a bit like Your Love Alone, which was specifically designed as a duet. So was this. And James had this kind of Kiki D, Elton John.
Yeah, you're missing out.
Combination.
You're missing out a factor. Sometimes when he gives me a lyric, it's just like this one was very particularly organised because there's a distinctive male and female voice. And sometimes, as he's giving you the lyric, Nick will say, I'd like if this one could be like, if it could sit on Ocean Rain by Echo and the Bunnymen, that'd be quite nice. It's like, thanks for giving me a lot of freedom on this one. And it took a lot of writing. It's one of those songs that I felt the pressure of the lyric because the lyric just communicates just brilliantly. Even when you're just sitting in your room in your house, you look at the lyric and you go, okay, it's about a co-abusive relationship and how people feed off the sense of drama. Some people need that. And I was thinking, and it was organised so well, and he'd had this wish list of wanting it to be Ocean Rain-esque, and kind of I'd written it about 4 times, and it was just dog do. It was awful. And then I just thought, right, I'll just try and be really simple. And then obviously the simple way just really worked. It just felt like a bit of a 70s song with a bit of Ocean Rain chucked in the middle section. Yeah, the middle section is very Ocean Rain. So I was hoping that would satisfy him. So sometimes there's a pressure of writing music to a lyric because of the lyricist's wish list for direction, and also because that it's just a perfectly formed lyric and you got to do good.
Yeah. I remember we recorded that was on the last days of our old studio in Faster, and we did it really quick, bizarrely. And I remember watching Sean really do his best Pete DeFreitas sort of impression, with hot rods, again for the Ocean Rain kind of thing, and
it was difficult everywhere. It's quite a jerky track, but he managed to keep a sense of motion going all the way through the track, and it's a slight time signature change in the middle, and he went seamlessly into it. And like Sean does that typical thing, we go, well, it's the best I can do, mate. But we it's brilliant. Oh no, it's not. It's rubbish.
But we kept that original drum take, didn't we?
We did, yeah, we did. So again, I think it was the Left Behind, Dylan and Caitlin, and Distant Colours were the 3 songs that survived in some kind of skeletal form from Faster.
Yeah. It's interesting, though, because you'd never think of combining Echo and the Bunnymen's Ocean Rain with Elton John and Kiki D, Don't Go Breaking My Heart, but you do it very well.
I get it. Whenever, I think of that song, I just think of it's my second, proper crush. Kiki D in dungarees, the video was just, at first it was the test car girl when I was about 4 years old. And then
That's too much information.
I was 4, I couldn't discern, but, between what was kind of, a real life person or not, I don't know, it was the test card. And then kind of Kiki D in the video wearing dungarees was my first proper love.
But you couldn't have been much older than 4 when you saw that.
I think 76. Is 76 good enough? So I was 7.
Right. Yeah.
7. Yeah.
That was quite early.
Yeah. No, I mean, a crush in an innocent way. A crush in a kind of like carnal way.
No, I absolutely loved her hair in it. And she was on a whistle test when they rebooted that the other night, and her hair was still absolutely magnificent.
Yeah, it was. She looked great on there.
Absolutely magnificent.
Yeah. Is it a shade you would sport, Nicky? I think I could see you with that shade.
And her voice was brilliant as well.
Anyway.
But the anchoress sounds fantastic on this.
She does. She kind of weighs the song down. I said no pun intended, anchoress. But kind of no, because my voice goes high, and you can sense the Dylan Thomas slightly hysteric, kind of like drunken, and she weighs it down with the woman's reason. Whilst being quite forceful too, and so kind of the dynamic of how voices fit together is really cool.
Yeah, and did you take on those characters? Did you become Dylan Thomas?
You mean Caitlin? Did I go like full on David Bowie mime? No, I didn't. No.
And did you sing the duet staring at each other? Or
yeah, we did it in the day about 12 minutes past 3 in the morning. No separate.
Right, because there would be a nice film to be made of the two of you singing in that Elton Kiki D way.
Me and Catherine did something together in the studio about 2 weeks ago, and the director said, "Can you look into each other's eyes when you're singing?" And I tried my best, but she was like, "No way, dude." It's just like I'm gonna laugh, kind of thing. So kind of it's yeah. When I'm asked to interact with other musicians in a kind of groovy sense, it doesn't work.
Yeah, tricky business.
Yeah, it's tricky business.
Yeah. Dylan and Caitlin is followed by Liverpool Revisited. Now, what can you tell us about Liverpool Revisited?
Well, this is pretty much, and it is a kind of a Wire song in its entirety, so I'll give it over to him.
Well, it was a magical day on the Everything Must Go tour. We played the Echo Arena in Liverpool, and it was a really balmy, hazy day, and I just got up really early, off with my Polaroid camera and walking around Liverpool and down to the riverfront. And it does take on a sort of psychedelic quality, the amount of stone and the sun, the heat haze, and listening to Bill Ryder Jones. And it just made me realise how much Liverpool culture had actually had an effect on me growing up. You know, like, obviously the Bunnymen, watching GBH and Scully and Brookside and the football. Just a lot of things were just kind of fusing and flooding into my memory, and just the way the city stood up for itself against the kind of entire establishment of Britain, you know, in terms of Hillsborough, to fight that battle like they did
for so long as well.
And I thought of Jimmy McGovern, and it was just one of all those things were flooding through me. I got back to the hotel room and I had loads of photos, and it's just been a brilliant day. And I fell asleep like the glory of an afternoon nap. And then I woke up, which is the line, you know, as I wake to a sunset. And we did the gig that night, which was just an amazing celebration. And I knew I had the title Liverpool Revisited, and I knew I had some lines. I had my little acoustic guitar with me, and I knew I felt like I had something special musically and lyrically, and that I had a middle section like the Bunnymen on the cutter. So that's how it all came together.
Wow.
And he did the guitar solo on it as well.
I did.
Wow. There's a complete showboating, just like opus.
And it was I'd done a pretty bad demo, actually, which wasn't reflective of what it would become. Fair play for James Jean to giving me having a bit of faith in it. And Sean was off to Peru on this mammoth trek with charity Valindra, and literally the last thing he did was the drums for this. Again, really quick, really brilliant.
It's the best I can do, mate.
You know, I got a lot to sing. I'm packing. I'm off to Peru tomorrow and stuff like that. I thought, oh God, is this the last thing he's ever? Something bad's going to happen in Peru. But again, it's just the drums were there, absolutely nailed. And James put these amazing harmonies on the middle section, and it's really short. It's like 2 minutes 24. There's a middle section, chorus, loads of verses, guitar solo. There's a lot in there.
Shows what can be done.
Indeed.
Put your mind to it.
Yeah.
And we're going to hear it now. This is Liverpool Revisited, Manic Street Preachers on X-Posure, Radio X. It is Manic Street Preachers on X-Posure Radio X, sequels of Forgotten Wars. It's the 7th track on their brand new album, Resistance is Futile. I'm John Kennedy. I'm very pleased to say that Nicky and James are here giving us the lowdown track by track. And earlier on I said that, this to me sounds like a very rocky album. No, this is you revisiting your rock roots, and Sequels of Forgotten Wars is one of those that I feel answers that description.
Yeah. I mean, kind of, Nick said early on that kind of it sounded like something which could have been on Generation Terrorists.
Yes.
And this was like
Or Duke by Genesis.
Good record. But kind of, well, some of it is. And it was another song where I just had to do a little demo in this studio, Watertown Studios in Cardiff Bay, with Gav, and it's a kind of I don't know, the song just, it felt like it was trying to describe, the age we live in terms of how the news needs to be dramatised now. Drama needs to be dramatised. Why do you need some of these events dramatised when they're already beyond kind of anything you can imagine? And it was kind of about opinion-led news where you'd have the opposing talking heads just tearing each other apart, telling you nothing. So it just felt as if the track really had to drive along and just be kind of confrontational, I think.
I mean, I love this track. It's just got such a rock crunch to it. It really has just, reminds me of the second Pearl Jam album, Rearview Mirror or something like that. It's just got a crunch to it. The playing's amazing, the drum sound's amazing, the guitars. James wrote the lyric originally. I think I added quite a bit.
I know, I had a verse, a bridge and some lines in the chorus, and then Nick added most of the lyric after that. Checked out a couple of my lyrics as well. And so I think this was the little period in the middle of writing where we were stalling a bit, kind of thing, because we didn't have a studio and we couldn't sense when we were going to start a record.
Yeah.
So this was us trying to push it along, and we had a couple of tracks where it just felt as if there was perhaps, you're right, they weren't rocky enough. We didn't have enough. We didn't have stuff that was propelling us forward in terms of just speed. And this was a song that felt like it was designed more than kind of written, I suppose, really.
I'm not looking forward to playing this one live.
I don't think we will.
It's hard. It really is.
It's kind of, it's three different key changes. There's changes in kind of like time signature and stuff. We need more rehearsal, I think.
I do.
And is that Jacques Delors? Do you mention Jacques Delors in there? Because I haven't seen the lyric writing.
Really? I think I know what line you're on about.
And there's a word.
Jacques Delors, but it's not. No. Why is it?
It's sequels of
Jacques Delors. No, it's not, but it's good call.
Yeah. And then Nowhere to Go for Rock and Roll, is that?
Yes, that is one.
Yeah,
that is one. Yeah,
because you're covering a lot of ground. From politics and kind of history as it's going on.
I think because kind of Rolling News tends to cover a lot of ground these days. I think it was just like it is supposed. It's not even a soundbite anymore, is it? It's it really is kind of a cavalcade of like the digital hiss of hysteria, as Steve Albini once called it. It feels as if you've got the ticker tape, you've got kind of like something being trailered on the sidebar, you've got like oppositional voices shouting at each other, and a kind of like a host trying to kind of like calm them down, but really enjoying the car crash TV, so I think it's kind of the way that everything is crammed into the song lyrically a bit, it just reflects all that.
Yeah. Digital hiss of hysteria, that's a great phrase.
Copyright Steve Albini.
Yeah, amazing. So you follow that with Hold Me Like Heaven, or A Heaven.
A Heaven, yeah.
And what's this one about then?
It's probably my favourite song on the record, my favourite lyric anyway, and it's a song of real tenderness and despair and fragility in a lot of ways. There's a Philip Larkin poem, what is it called? Lines on a Young Lady's Photograph album, something like that. And there's one line in there where it just goes, "It holds you like a heaven," which just has always resonated in my head. And I kind of had an outpouring of emotion with this song, and like tattered manifestos litter the mind, diplomatic plans ravaged by time. It's kind of an internal and an external view of the world, of just not being able to keep up, really, that a lot of the certainties we knew are evaporating, before us at a rapid rate. And the song itself, I've always been obsessed with Ashes to Ashes and trying to pull something akin to Ashes to Ashes. And I've convinced everyone that this is our Ashes to Ashes. James is not really convinced.
No, there's a rolling undertow, like almost a kind of like there is our version of that slight discombobulated funkiness underneath it in terms of the rhythm track, because it doesn't do what we usually do, but again, it came quite naturally. But
didn't Sean write the verse for this musically?
Yeah,
also?
he did, yeah. Kind of like this is another thing where, this was the last song that got written for the record, and I was convinced we were one song short. And I was being a pain in the arse at this point, just racing around between camps. Come on, we got to do this. Come on, we got to do that. Come on, we got to do this. And me and Sean have an argument once every 10 years or so, and this was the argument we're going to have in this decade. And so I basically I'd put this, I'd nag Nick for the lyric. Then I put it in front of Sean at the studio. I said, come on, you need to write a verse which I can really sing. Because, when Sean writes a verse, usually he puts the onus on the vocalist just having to really communicate, what's going on. And so kind of within half hour he came down and says, "What about this, mate?" kind of thing. I'm doing a really bad impersonation, mate, but he always kind of like he downplays everything, you know. And so he played it to me and I went, "Yeah, great, I can work off that." Then the next day we were off to Nice to film the video for International Blue, I think. Yeah, I've got it right this time because I've had this mixed up before. So yeah, a couple of days later we're off to Nice to do the video for International Blue. So I had this romantic notion in my head that Sean had written the verse musically, and I just had to take guitar to Heathrow, you know, and then a flight in Nice, and then in the nights off I'd finish the song, get to Heathrow. I've got a little kind of Ibanez guitar with me, and then travel guitar, and the woman checking us in, nice lady, but she says, "Sorry, there's a new rule on BA where if you haven't got a hard case you can't take it on the flight." So I was just
couldn't even put it in the hold. So at this point my dramatic mind is thinking, something's trying to stop me writing the song. There's something great in the air. I was like, "Are you sure about this, miss?" kind of thing. She was like, "Yes." And we could have been a right pain about this.
I'm going to be, but I was kind of late, you know, going through the gate at the airport. So I was just like, "Do you want a guitar?" She was like, "Oh, that'd be lovely, thank you." Christmas is coming. So like somebody had a guitar for Christmas. I don't want to get anybody in trouble. It was all consensual. I gave the guitar away for free. And kind of then I got to Nice, and of course I had the romantic notion in my head. So in the video crew I was like, "Does anybody play guitar? You know, because I need a guitar, you know, while I'm staying here to try and write, man, because I'm so creative." Yeah. And so like, you know, one of the guys there was working the video, kindly got his guitar from his apartment, and then like, you know, the last night we were there, I had, you know, Sean's version on my phone. I'd recorded it of the verse, and then the chorus just came. And by the time I got back home, I went to do the demo in Cardiff Bay again because our studio was out of action for a week for some reason, and then the guy who produced half the track, Gavin, had already done some of the demo, said, "Why don't you just chop half the chorus off and just use that bit?" I was like, "Okay, cool." And then it just came together. And it was just, you know, I like romanticizing things sometimes because I like to think that there is magic in the air that you're trying to grab. So between having to give my guitar up to the nice lady at Heathrow, between having to get a guitar in Nice, which wasn't very good, I must say, but it played, and then coming back to record it, you know, me and Sean had a big argument. I was just like, "Come on, we got to do the drums tape because I'm mastering the record in like 3 weeks." And then we went at it. He was just like, "Well, you ain't give me no time. Yeah, how you rushing me into it? It doesn't work like this." I was like, "Oh, fine, you know, kind of like, I'm such a bad guy for just wanting us to just have another good song on the record." And kind of like, you know, but, you know, obviously, you know, me and Sean are very close, so there's no big deal. But it just felt like there was a battle to get to the song, and I like the notion of that. Yeah. So there you go. Sorry, too long a story about one song.
No, it's excellent. A little window into the life. Fantastic. And you leap straight in, don't you? And it goes straight into the...
It does. Yeah. And I've always been obsessed with that, actually, because I always loved it on Fuzzy Logic, because if you don't want me, you know, I love the idea that a song that either starts with a snare drum or a vocal, kind of thing. So, a good example of a snare drum one is Die Laughing Therapy. So there you go.
Fantastic, excellent. And
Too
we
much
can
coffee.
hear the Manics, the Manics version of that now. Hold Me Like a Heaven. Manic Street Preachers on X-Posure Radio X.
A walk between the dividing lines.
You're listening to Exposure on Radio X. I'm John Kennedy, and that is Manic Street Preachers with In Eternity from the new album Resistance is Futile. Nicky and James are here. We're working our way through the whole of the album. You said Hold Me Like a Heaven, which you heard just before the break. You know, was your Ashes to Ashes, Nicky.
Yeah.
I mean, I hear, especially in the keys on this, a little bit of Bowie in this track.
Definitely.
You know, kind of low Heroes type era.
Yeah. I think In Eternity, it was a tribute to him anyway, lyrically, and just the kind of chasm of loss and despair that's been left by his passing. You know, that there'll never be anyone as perfect a pop stroke rock star ever again. It's just never going to happen that anyone crosses that many genres, looks that good, writes such brilliant words, and makes such amazing music. You know, I don't think it'll ever happen again. And musically is definitely, there's lots of station in there and harmonised drums. So it is an overall homage, almost, I would say, to the great man.
And so are you suggesting that his music, his work is there for eternity?
Definitely.
Yeah. Which it is. It's just...
Yeah, I think if there's one icon that will survive even a nuclear war or something, I don't know, it's him. I can't imagine that his brilliance will ever disappear. It's the one thing I hold on to in an age where things, kind of get churned up faster and faster and everything accelerates. Everyone has their different... The amazing thing is everyone has their different eras, their favourite eras, and you can always dip back into the back catalogue and everything, and you just forget how many amazing songs he wrote.
Yeah, and it's interesting because stories keep coming out now that he's gone, of different people's encounters with him and the different things that he did for people and the way that he would communicate and the friendships that you hear about. So it's fascinating, because you get to see more of the background that we never knew about.
I think it's also you just become aware because Rob Stringer, the guy that signed us, can we now the boss of I associate is it Sony Worldwide now?
Pretty much everything.
But he, Rob was obviously integrally linked with, Bowie's, come back with the last 2 records, so he got to know him very well, and sometimes when somebody's telling you about something that you admire and they've met them and you say, what are they like? And you always get one little disappointing nugget back, but, when Rob told us about, David, Bowie, there was just nothing disappointing that you could ever say, it was just every story that you could ever tell about him, which was nothing revealing, at all, it was just reinforced everything you thought about him. Just, amazing, untouchable, but kind of underneath it, you just knew he was kind of just a good bloke as well. Yeah. Sorry to be so prosaic by saying good bloke, but it just when you get those moments where it doesn't disappoint on any level, in second-hand conversations, in meeting him. In fact, when I actually think I met him once, and it's just one of those cringe moments, I kind of even then he was great when I met him because it was the Greatest Hits tour, and it was at Wembley Arena. I went to see him. And he'd actually send somebody to say, come back and say hello. So I went back and said hello. And he said, I love the show, love this track, love that track. I was like, I'm really disappointed he didn't play, This Is Not America, which is a song he did with Pat Metheny. And he was like, and I went, because, it's pretty much my favourite song of yours. And he just cocked his head like a confused spaniel and he went, really? And it just took me back. I was like, what am I saying? It's not my favourite Bowie song, but it is one of my favourite Bowie songs. But he completely disarmed me with, really? But he was absolutely lovely, he was. But, he's the only person I've probably ever met who can have just when you can have as much as he tried to put you at ease, it's not possible. Because he is who he is.
Wasn't your wedding first dance?
My wedding dance was Wild is the Wind by David Bowie, because my wife is just a Bowie freak kind of thing. And as all I can say is it's a long track. We should have done an edit for our first dance. And perhaps it's not a song lyric that's filled with joy. But it was nice. But yeah, we should have done an edit on it, definitely.
Well, I didn't.
Johnny Mathis's version of Wild is the Wind is very good, actually, as well. Nina Simone's version is very good too.
I did an interview today where a chap said he was getting married in a couple of weeks' time, and his wedding song was Motorcycle Emptiness.
Did he do the edit?
I said, it's 6 minutes 6, don't you? And the first line's culture sucks down words. Do you really want to dance to that?
And what did he say?
No, he's practiced up, he said. So
wow.
He looked quite
props
fit.
to him.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Broken Algorithms is the next song on Resistance is Futile. We haven't actually talked about the title. I haven't asked you about the title. Resistance is Futile.
Well, when the kind of image came first of the samurai, the sort of melancholic samurai warrior facing up to the reality that he was becoming redundant in many ways with the onset of the gun and technology, which I applied to our position as being in a band, the idea that us and our guitars, our instruments sort of feels like, and having a big studio when most people seem to be doing it on an iPhone. It's just our idea of facing up to harsh realities. But there's also that it's layered in the sense that we thought we had so much melody on the album and so many tunes that maybe you have to give in at a certain point, and resistance is futile to this record because it's just so smothered in a certain vitality that it's pretty hard to pull off a band on their 13th record. So the image and the title were kind of layered in that respect.
And this next track seems like one that would be pretty hard to pull off live.
I don't know.
The drums are insane.
This is another one
Nick
where
McBain.
I done just like a vocal and electric guitar demo in Cardiff Bay, and came back and I heard it differently because there were no drums on it at all. And then we put it up in the studio, and Sean just did. He just really did an amazing job, especially in the choruses. Like I said, it's almost Nico McBain-esque, Iron Maiden drummer in the choruses, mixed with some magazine and kind of stuff.
Bill
It's a strange
Ward.
beast. Bill Ward, yeah. It's a strange beast of a song. To be honest, this is the kind of song that we pull off quite easily in terms of when you play live. It's the kind of...
Speak for yourself.
Well, no. I mean, kind of like, when Mauro and Wire just, play live, they play fucking hard. They really do, he might tell you something differently, but he don't. They both, Nick and Sean, play really hard. They're really, really hard rhythm section, loud and aggressive. And this is the kind of song which we play naturally. We really do, where you just forget. You forget about being restrained and showing any taste, and you just go for it.
And also, I'm a huge Sabbath fan, but I also think the Ronnie James Dio era of Sabbath is very underrated.
Not the lyrics. No way. There's too many goblins and wizards
It's not as
in there.
good as Geezer's lyrics maybe are much better than Ronnie's, but Neon Nights and Die Young and stuff like that, Mob Rules, are really good. And Neon Nights was the first 7-inch I ever bought, so they're definitely. I think my phrase was Sonic Youth playing Black Sabbath, something like that. And the lyric is one of the most old school lyrics on there. Really, it is. It's when I give it to James, I think it was about that long.
Yeah, it was 2 pieces of paper. It's kind of pretty sticked together.
Yeah, and just the idea of that of control. When you caress the beauty of your screens, remember their wish is to own your dreams.
Yeah.
Just the idea of data collection, of constantly being traced, of never being able to be just lost. My biggest fear, really, it's not politicians that scare me most in the world. It's definitely the tech companies. It's something for. Oh God, goes back in my lyrics for the last 10 years. Really, that I see them as the most frightening kind of illegal concepts that we face now and in the future. They just swan around the world. They don't pay tax. They don't pay by any rules, really, and they just live in massive compounds and protect themselves. And in California, so that all comes out in that, the idea of this algorithmic society that tries to control us, but it doesn't control me. I can't even pay with cash anymore. I get so annoyed when someone shoves some stupid thing in front of my face. And can you pay? I just got money in you. And one of my sweetest ever moments is when people don't have cash and all the tills go, or they're in a parking and they realise they can't use their card. And I actually pay for them at times with a massive element of smugness and go, I actually carrying money with me. Get out the way. Stop clogging up because your contactless card doesn't work.
Close him down.
Let's play the track. These broken algorithms, Manic Street Preachers on Radio X. It is Manic Street Preachers with Song for the Sadness. It's the penultimate track on the new album Resistance is Futile, which I've been playing you the whole thing. I'm John Kennedy. Nicky and James are here. We've had some pretty passionate conversation, which has been fantastic and matches the mood, the feel of the album. It's a passionate album, isn't it, really? I mean,
It actually is. It is, yeah.
I think you can really hear it in the playing as well. No.
I think there's no badge of honour, but we are a working class band, and I know somebody will harp on about, you're still working class, are you? You've been rock star, whatever, mate, kind of thing. But we were a working class band, and we are a working class band at heart, and therefore we are suspicious of journalists that are suspicious themselves of people showing emotion in music, or people showing a physicality in the way they play,
or even a certain violence.
Yeah, and we've always believed this eloquence and screaming. We always have, and we will never shy away from that. We're not ever going to be a paid down kind of like mood music. We're never going to repeat mantras and phrases all over and call it music, and that's fine for some people. That's cool, but there is suspicion amongst journalists, amongst some journalists, where they find it too brazen when you show emotion. They find it distasteful. They don't like it. It's not sustainable enough. How can you sustain, showing too much emotion is not sustainable enough. And we are just the opposite of that. We just are sometimes. And sometimes we go over the top. Yeah, we do. Yeah. But wherever,
But people respond to it.
Some
the listeners,
people.
the fans, the audience.
Some people. I mean, it's not the... it's not for the reserve of just rock musicians to do that. A lot of indie music I grew up with was really in your face. Whether it be Big Flame. Big Flame, one of the most, what else would you say? Big Flame, really in your face.
Oh, well,
Age of Chance, really in your face.
Yeah,
Bogshed, really in your face.
Well, I mean, for all the kind of the Marxist credentials, McCarthy is really, my favourite band is really emotional music. And I'd actually really like to be more reserved and distant at times, and sometimes we pull it off. But as a rule, it just doesn't quite. When we really let rip, is sometimes when we've made our best music. And I think in such an uncertain time. Overall, the one certainty we have is when the three of us together and we have goosebumps when a certain track just takes over us emotionally and intellectually even, and we just think, we can still do it, and sometimes you have to coalesce around certain tracks for that to happen. It does, with Everything Must Go, even though we had No Surface or Feeling, Kevin Carter, Small Black Flowers, it didn't actually work until we coalesced and we had Design for Life, and that made the whole record make sense. And that happened with this album as well. We knew it was dripping with energy and vitality and emotion, but it was International Blue and Hold Me Like Heaven, which just finally kind of put all those dynamics together. And we're still absolutely obsessed with music, and we're still obsessed with writing the song that we haven't written yet.
I mean, with A Song for the Sadness, again, I forgot, it's one of the songs that came from the faster era.
It was a really rough demo, wasn't it?
A very skeletal acoustic demo. It's probably the song we give least thought to.
Yes.
I think Nick, while I was going away for a week or so he wasn't running the studio, and Guy Massey came down. He only produced one track on the record, but we've done lots of work with him. He's a brilliant ex-Abbey Road lad, just good Wirral boy kind of thing. And I think Nick had left behind an instruction that he wanted it to the drums to be kind of like our version of Race is the Prize,
Flaming Lips.
by Flaming Lips, so we started from that angle really.
Yeah. Flaming Lips meets ABBA, I think the premise was.
That's what you said. Another bit of homework that I was dreading.
I love these extra notes that we're getting. These notes that you passed to James.
Yeah, I have them twice on the record, so that's enough.
And when you share the lyrics with James, do you email them these days? Or do you go around and
come on, take a while, fucking guess. No.
Well, I'm assuming they're written on a postcard and put through your door.
No, I usually at the studio, isn't it? Usually I get them. We both are at the studio.
Oh, you just pop round. When now James has learned to drive, he'll just hover around.
I'm driving man now.
Outside the house.
1.2 of raging polo.
But I've always. It's still a magical. It's always handwritten as a rule. I think there was once when my dad had broken his hip and the family were on. I couldn't go to Hansa to Berlin to record, and James was desperate, so I did actually text him the entire lyric for Builder of Routine.
I felt like I was in an episode of Tomorrow's World. It was such a heightened moment of technology.
But there's never been an email thing. But the key for Song for the Sadness was just memories are all we leave, fragments of lost melancholy. That couplet I'd had for a long time, and just summed up a lot of the feelings on the record.
And the record closes with The Left Behind, which is the most downbeat moment on the record. And there's a kind of finality to it. and this is another one from Faster, is that right?
It is, yeah. It is, yeah. And this is where just I just left the room for long periods of this track because why I wrote this song in its entirety, and him and Sean were working on it a lot. And Laws, who's still a very nice kind of engineer at the studio, had sampled every note of a piano in the studio and turned it into a more of a kind of Ennio Morricone-esque, kind of like a spaghetti western kind of sound, and that kind of hammered sound, slightly out of tune sound. And Nick had seen that he'd sampled the stand-up piano in our studio, and he wanted to use that sound on the track. And I just stood back until a rhythm guitar needed to be played on it. But it's probably one of the best sounding tracks on the record, because it's not so much on it, is there? It's
no.
Speed.
And it's just, just some of the best Ringo-esque roles committed to tape for a long time. The drums sound absolutely glorious, and it is incredibly melancholic, and it's just me, just sat on the edge of a cliff, really just feeling like a dodo. The extinction is kind of round the corner.
Leave him wanting more.
But I was just listening to the White Album non-stop at that point, and there was the chord sequence to the verse, which I'd never ever used before, which is rare for me because I do tend to reuse my chord sequences. And the lyric just flowed. It was one of the few times that I didn't actually write the lyric down until I'd finished the song, because usually I'm always there looking at it. But apart from the second verse, it all came to me as I was playing a guitar, and I don't think that's ever happened to me before. And it was just flowing and flowing. I'd always wanted to get Conquistadors into a song as well. It was just me kind of pretending I was Pete Doherty for a few hours, I think. And that's enough. Yeah, a couple of hours is enough.
I think there were three distinct instructions for me on the record. Where I had to meet an expectation in his head. So the one was Ocean Rain-esque for Dylan and Caitlin. What was the other one?
We just mentioned it. ABBA Meets a Flaming Lips.
Yeah, ABBA Meets a Flaming Lip. And it was can you? On the left behind, he was like, "Could you play guitar on this one, but more like Graham Coxon would?" Thanks. Is me not good enough? So I got one of my oldest guitars and just tried to get a sticky sound, which joking about it, but I actually kind of enjoy that. I think a lot of other bands are really kind of snobbish in the studio, where they won't actually just listen to a peer, one of their peers, and just say, "Well, I'd like to have a go at perhaps approximating that effect or sound." And I kind of enjoy it sometimes. I do,
I think you actually generally enjoy just sort of being a guitarist on that track. You seem to be quite really happy in the pocket,
nice.
and
it's nice. If the fourth stage of our career could be that you could get another vocalist, it would be nice to be a guitarist for like 4 years. It would.
Okay, I'm on it.
Gotcha.
Thanks so much for coming in and talking us through the whole album. It's great to have you back here. And this is how you leave it all, with the left behind. This is Manic Street Preachers then on X-Posure Radio X. Resistance is futile.